Hello everybody, thanks to a vote by my Patreon supporters, I'm going to be showing you a comprehensive approach to melee attacks in games. Okay, I've got this from the perspective of a simple platform game, but it will also work for top-down games and pretty much anything. So I've got my little hero here, and what I'm going to be showing you how to do with him is make it so when I press the correct button, I do this little sword swing, and that sword swing is going to detect, using a hitbox sprite, is going to detect whether or not it hits an enemy, or any number of enemies for that matter. So you can see the flash that's going on when I'm hitting this guy here, and eventually falls apart like a goofy skeleton. And if I run over here and I position myself just right, you can see I can actually hit multiple skeletons at the same time. In part 2 of this two-part special on melee attacks, I'm going to be showing you how to do combo chains as well, so that instead of just doing the same like one static swing over and over, if we press attack again within a certain window, we do a different animation that can also have a different hitbox, different amount of damage, different qualities, whatever you want. Okay, so first of all, let's go through the process by which this is going to happen, because I think if you understand the process and you know enough about GML, you might not even need to watch the rest of the video. So the first thing we want to happen is have the player press a button and then the character play his sword swing animation. We're going to use a state machine to accomplish this. Second of all, we're going to empty, or create, I guess, a DS list. This list is going to store everything that has already been hit by this particular animation. Every game step that we're in this attacking state, we're going to check to see if we've hit an enemy. We do this by temporarily swapping out our player character's collision mask from his usual walking around mask to a mask that mirrors his attack. There are lots of different approaches to storing and using hitboxes, from creating other objects to manage them and so on and so forth. But I think just swapping the mask out like this is a really elegant solution. It does mean you have to use precise collision checks for these swings, because unfortunately in GameMaker, precise collision checks are the only ones that support a per frame collision check, and that's exactly what we need to make each frame have a different hitbox from the last. The alternative is to store your hitboxes as relative coordinates via some sort of DS map JSON strategy,
JSON,
which is ultimately the most flexible and probably best all-round solution, but it is a really big pain and takes a long time and a lot of your own know-how to set up and manage, often requiring you to build some sort of UI or tool to be able to manage your hitboxes visually. Whereas this method is super elegant, super simple, and a couple of precise collision checks is not going to ruin your game in 2018. So after swapping to this mask, what we're going to do is use the new collision list functions to check to see which enemies we've hit, which returns them into a DS list. We check each instance ID in that DS list to see if it already exists in our list of things that have been hit so far by this individual attack. For each one that has not yet been hit by this individual attack, we add its ID to the list of things that have been hit by this attack, and then we cause the effects of the attack on that instance. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So let's get started. So this is our player's code. I assume you're able to set up a game to the point where you have a simple platformer where you can move around, or a simple top-down game, and your step event's going to look something like this, where you get your inputs, you work out the speed you want to move, you sort out any collisions, and you do that stuff. That's all I've got going on here, okay? And some basic like v-speed, h-speed, walk speed, and gravity set up in the create event, okay? And a key press R just to restart the game, alright? That's really all I've got set up here. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a state machine for our player character, okay? All that really means, I mean, I have a whole video on this. If you want a lot more information, it'll be linked in the description. But all it really means for the sake of this video is all of this stuff in the step event, after we've got our inputs and we work out like where we're moving on our collision and that sort of stuff, I'm going to siphon that off into a script, okay, that we're only going to run while we are in a free state or an idle state, where we're allowed to just sort of move around and act. When we press attack, we're going to move to an attack state, where we're doing our attack animation and we're checking to see if we've hit an enemy and so on. Alright? So to set up our state machine, the first thing I want to do in the player's create event is I'm going to establish an enumerator for our player's different states. Now, what on earth does an enumerator mean or entail? Okay, well, you can create one by typing enum. So I'm going to do that. See, the text goes yellow. I'm going to call it player state in all caps. Okay. All an enumerator is, think of it like a labeling system for numbers, okay? They're constants, so like a global variable, for example, they can be used absolutely anywhere in your game, referenced in any script, any event, anything once they've been declared. And also, because they are constant, they can never be changed once they're established, okay? So it's good for establishing numbers you never ever want to change. We're going to have a variable called state, and that's going to store whether or not we're in our free state walking around or whether we're in the attacking state and so on. And rather than store that as state equals 0 or state equals 1, it's better for us if we can store that as player state free or player state attack and so on, okay? Just because it's more English readable. So literally think of them as that. They're just a labeling system for numbers in your game, okay? We're going to have 3 of these. We're going to have player state free, comma, player state attack underscore slash. That's going to be our chopping attack. And then for part 2, we're also going to have attack underscore combo. All right. GameMaker likes to take its time with this, but eventually those will turn red. There we go, to establish that they're part of that enumerator and that they are constant. So there's a couple of other things we need to set up in here. I'm just going to leave some space between those variables on our enum, and I'm going to first of all establish that state variable we were talking about. So I'm going to type state equals, and then this is how you reference the enum, player state dot free. Okay, or dot attack slash and so on. Okay, now you might be wondering, hey, we've declared that before actually defining our enum in the code. How is that going to work? Well, a funny thing about enums and all constants in general, so enums and macros in the case of GameMaker, is that you can establish them absolutely anywhere in your code. In fact, you can even define an enum in a script that you literally never call once in your game. Okay, you could just make a script called macros and enums, and you could use that, and I often do when working on projects as a way to collate all of my enums and macros, because that stuff all gets sorted out when your game is compiled and all the sort of text gets replaced in your code, and you never have to worry about it, okay? The other thing we want to do in here is add hit by attack. Okay, and this is where we're going to keep our DS list, okay, of things that have been hit by the player so far by a given attack, and we just wipe that at the start of any given attack. So I'm going to type ds underscore list underscore create. Very important when you create a DS list or a DS structure in general, it's pretty good practice to already go ahead and work out where you're going to get rid of it, okay? Because it takes up a space in memory, and you don't want to create a memory leak or anything like that. If you kept creating new players, for example, and getting rid of players without getting rid of their DS lists, you might create a memory leak. So let's add an event quickly, add the cleanup event, which is a handy new event in GameMaker Studio 2. That happens when this object is destroyed, or when the room ends and the object is destroyed, and so on, okay? Very handy for getting rid of stuff like DS lists and things that you might have lying around. So I'm going to write DS list destroy, open bracket, hit by attack. That's the only line we need in there. Okay, so with that sorted out, let's come back to the step event for our player, which is this huge chunk of code. Let's zoom out a bit on this. In fact, let's just maximize this. So how do we turn this huge chunk of code into a state machine? At the moment, we're just processing everything all in one big step event. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the keyboard inputs behind, okay, because those are important, and I'm going to chop everything else out, okay? So there's everything with our speed calculations based on our inputs, our collisions, our animations, especially at the bottom here. I'm going to cut all of that out by pressing Control X, okay, just to place it all on the clipboard, because we're going to paste it into another script. So I'm going to right click in scripts, hit create, and I'm going to call this script player state underscore free, okay, capital P, capital S, capital F. And then I'm going to paste that code straight into there. Then I'm going to make 2 more scripts, okay? I'm going to create a script called player state underscore attack underscore slash, and I'm going to make 1 more script called player state underscore attack underscore combo. So now with the setup out of the way, we can go ahead and actually create our state machine. So come to the player's step event, which is now mostly empty and just has our keyboard inputs. Then I'm gonna create a switch statement for our state variable. So I'm gonna type switch, open bracket, state, close bracket. Now all we want to do to make our state machine work is check to see what is currently in our state variable. In the create event, we already set it to be player_state.free. Okay, so when it is player_state.free, we want to run the player_state_free script. When we're in the attack state, we want to run the attack/ script, and when we're in attack combo, we want to run that script. Okay, so a switch statement is perfect for this. It lets us check what's in this variable and lets us perform different cases based on what's in it. So our first case is going to be case player_state dot not our dot idle dot free even, and then a colon. That's a proper colon, not a semicolon, as hopefully you're used to writing at the end of lines of code now. And then anything we write after that colon is what's going to happen if state equals player_state.free. All right, so all we want that to be is player_state_free, open bracket, close bracket, semicolon, and then break at the end of here. Okay, typing that break statement tells the switch statement that this is where this particular case ends. Our next case and next line of code, as you might as well have already guessed, is going to be case player_state.attack_/ colon player_state_attack_/ open bracket, close bracket, semicolon, break, semicolon. And then the third line, exactly the same. I'm just going to type it out. So case player_state.attack_combo colon player_state_combo open bracket, close bracket, semicolon, break. Okay, and that one we're not even going to use in this part, but it's good to have it set up here. It doesn't really hurt us to have it set up because there's no way of us actually getting to that state. Okay, so I'm going to come to the player_state_free script. Okay, so after running all this stuff with all the collisions and stuff, right at the bottom in a single line of code, if key attack is true, state equals player_state.attack_/. So when we press the attack key, our state changes to this, and therefore on the next step, when we check to see what's in our state, it's going to be this, and we're going to run this script instead of this script, okay? All right, so we've got ourselves into the attack state. If we were to run that and press attack, we'd just find ourselves standing around doing nothing because we're no longer running any of the code for moving around. So our character would just sort of stand there forever, okay? So let's come to now our player_state_attack_/ script. I'm just going to middle click it here to quickly open it, a new tab. Okay, and it's completely empty. So what do we put in here? First of all, I'm going to neutralize whatever our current speeds are, okay? Even though we're not using them to move yet, just for when we come back to the free state later, I want to just completely cut any momentum we previously had in favor of this attack, all right? So start of the attack. So what I'm going to do is check to see if we are just this frame beginning our attack. And we can do that very, very easily because this is the only time we would ever be in our attacking animation. So I'm going to type if sprite_index does not equal sattack_/ that's okay. So I've got a whole bunch of sprites in here, but attack/ is the name of our slashing attack. All right. So if that's true, then we want to set sprite index to be sattack_/. We want to set image index to equal 0 so that we're doing this from the start of the attack. That's very important. And then we want to do ds_list_clear hit by attack. Next up, we are going to use attack hitbox and check for hits. Okay. And we're going to do this by setting our mask index to equal sattack_/HB. Now let's talk a little bit about how I've set these hitboxes up. Okay, so I have sattack / over here, and I have sattack_/HB, which you can see has this big red square. Now if I edit this, a very handy thing for this in GameMaker Studio 2 is we have layers. So if I turn on this bottom layer, you can see I actually just duplicated the slashing attack. And then what I did is I created a new layer on top, which I called hitbox, and I just drew a half transparent, just so I could see what was underneath, box over the top of our sprite. And then once I was happy that I'd covered everywhere that I want the attack to be able to hit, I simply turned the default, the bottom layer off, invisibility, okay? Leaving that as our final sprite. Very, very useful, because it means we've got the exact same number of frames, it's lined up perfectly, the origin is in exactly the same spot, okay? So if you want to create your hitbox, that's how I recommend you do it. Just right-click, duplicate your original sprite, draw the hitboxes over the top, and then mark that layer, the original layer, invisible, okay? Absolutely perfect. One other thing about the attack hitbox, okay? So make sure you go to collision mask, select automatic, and type as precise per frame, okay? That's very important. That's what makes this whole thing work. Unfortunately, it does have to be precise per frame. There is per frame. There is no rectangle per frame, unfortunately. There's no ellipse per frame or any of these other things. Precise per frame is the only one that allows us to have per frame collision boxes, which is what we need for this method. It's unfortunate, but it doesn't, as I've said before, it's not going to matter in the long term of your game, unless you have loads and loads and loads of entities all doing these kinds of attacks all the time. It's not going to matter that much. And to have an even better, more elegant solution than this would require a much longer video, and this video is already kind of long. So it's a good method. It's a good, elegant method. Don't be too put off by this, okay? But do make sure you set it. It is essential for this to work. The other thing that's important to note is you can see an S idle here. I have a collision box already marked out for the hitbox, general like collision box, or a player walking around and stuff, okay? That's not going to be affected by any of this. So if I come to the player object, you see collision mask, and this is important, is not set as it is by default to same as sprite. It is set to S idle, okay? That means it's fixed in S idle and will always be S idle unless we specifically and manually change it, which is what we are doing here in the code. We're changing it to /HB, and then after we're done, once we're done checking for hits, we change it back to S idle, okay? That's what we're going to do right at the end of here. It's very important that you do that, because obviously we still want to have our regular idle collision box for checking to see like our collisions with walls, whether enemies have hit us, and so on, okay? So now that we've set our mask to be our hitbox, I'm going to write var hit by attack now to equal ds list create. Okay, so I'm going to create a new ds list, and this list is going to store the IDs of every instance that we hit on this frame, okay? And that's what we're going to then check against our list of things we've attacked with this entire attack, all of its frames so far, okay? Var hits is going to equal instance underscore place underscore list, okay? This is a new function, GMS2. X and Y is the position. The object we're looking for a collision with is O enemy. The list that we're going to store the hits in is hit by attack now. Okay, you need to have created that DS list beforehand, which we've just done there. And ordered at the end will, if you mark it as true, we're not going to, we're going to mark it as false. But if you do mark it as true, it can be very useful. It will return the IDs in the order of closest to furthest, okay? Which can be really, really helpful in specific circumstances to get a bunch of collisions and work out something that should happen to them in order of distance. Okay, it's really, really cool. I cover that more in another video I've done on multiple collisions, which you can go check out. I might put that in the description as well, why not? Okay. What this will actually return, though, other than filling this list with all those IDs, which it will do, is it will fill hits with just the raw number of hits, okay? So if we collide with 3 things, it'll contain 3. So, if hits greater than 0, so if we've hit something on this particular frame, for var I equals 0, semicolon, I less than hits, semicolon, I plus plus. So this is gonna do 3, like if we hit 3 things, this would do 3 loops. If we hit 2 things, it would do 2 loops, okay, with I incrementing by 1 each time, so we can go through in order each one of the hits and process them accordingly. So open another pair of curly braces. If this instance has not yet been hit by this attack, okay, so next up, write var hit ID equals hit by attack now. Open a square bracket, type the little vertical line. Okay, for me this is holding shift and pressing backslash in order to get this character, okay? and then type I, close bracket, semicolon. Okay, what this does and what this little weird character does is it's kind of shorthand for dealing with a DS list. Okay, it lets us find a particular entry of a DS list as a shorthand way of writing it. If you can't find that character or you find it too confusing, you can also write, I believe it's DS underscore list find value hit by attack now comma I. Okay, and that will do exactly the same thing. Okay, it finds that position in the list and gives you back the value of it. But that's a shorter way of writing it, and it's very much a habit for me now to do it like that. Then if ds underscore list underscore find underscore index, okay, open bracket hit by attack comma hit id close bracket equals -1. So what that does is we check to see if a particular value actually exists in the DS list at all. So we found whatever the top entry is of our list of things we've hit this frame. We check to see if an entry matching that entry exists in our list of things that have already been hit. Okay, if it doesn't exist, then we'll get a -1 back. Okay, and that's what will be the result of this if statement. So if it doesn't exist in that list, so we've hit something this frame that doesn't exist on our list of things we've already hit. In that case, we want to first of all add it to that list. So ds underscore list underscore add hit by attack comma hit id close bracket semicolon. And then we want to do whatever we want to do with our enemy. And so we can simply type with hit ID. So with the thing that we have just hit. And then do whatever you want in here, really. I'm going to write enemy hit, open bracket 2, close bracket. What that does is it tells my game through my various other scripts that I want to hit this enemy object for 2 damage. If I go into this script, you can see it's just that's the argument I pass through is the damage I want to deal. It happens to its hit points. We set flash to equal true. If hit points are still above 0, then we go to a hit state. If hit points are not greater than 0, we go to a dead state. Okay, it's just very simple. Whatever you want to happen with your enemies, this is where you want to do it, right? You don't even have to do it as a script like this. You can just do it with the enemy and do whatever you want in here. But I'm going to leave that to you because there's too many variations on how you might want your enemies to behave and react. This is a simple one. Pause the screen now if you want to look into all this stuff and then replicate like the mechanics of flash and so on the enemy, but we don't have time for that in this particular video. Okay, so whatever you want to happen to the enemy when they get hit, this is where you want it to happen. Okay, then that's it really for this loop. So because I mean, if this doesn't return -1 and it returns something else, it means we've already hit that instance so far with this particular attack. Okay, so we wouldn't want to do anything else. So let's just bring all this up together. So that's that complete loop done. And then at the end of it, we want to destroy the list of things we hit this particular step. So ds list destroy hit by attack now, and then we want to set our collision mask, as I said before, back to normal. So mask underscore index equals s idle. Okay, so back to our original collision mask. Okay, so the very last thing we need to do in this part is we're going to make it so when this animation actually ends, we stop the attack. Okay, so the attack only happens once and then we go back to the idle state. Actually a little trickier than it seems, and I'm going to use a script that was very graciously loaned to me from the GameMaker subreddit Discord, called animation underscore end. Shout outs to Pixelated Pope and MiniPython for this one. This script basically will return true if the animation that you're currently in, based on your sprite index and your image index and the current speed of your game and all of that stuff, is about to loop this step. Okay, the manual is very misleading when it comes to showing you how to do this. A lot of people have used this code as well, where it tells you that if you were to write, so let's come back to our attack state. If you were to write if image index is greater than image number minus 1, then you're at the end of your animation and your animation is going to loop. This does not work. It doesn't work right at all. And the worst part of it is it kind of half works sometimes, which just makes the misleading use of this in the manual even more distressing, okay? The reason this doesn't work is because if your image index, say you've got 6 frames in your animation, okay, so starting from frame 0 and ending on frame 5, your image index is 6, so that's greater than image number minus 1, because it's greater than 5, right? So you would think, okay, so that's when your animation is ended, but the thing is your image index can never equal 6, because when your image index is incremented, it happens at the end of your frame, so after the end step, image index is going to go up by an amount depending on your image speed. So if it goes to 6, which is more than the number of frames you have, then it gets wrapped back around to 0, okay? And then your next frame is rendered. So the only time this would work is if your image speed is means that your image index is increasing at a rate of less than 1 per frame. Which it often is, because we're if we're doing a 60 FPS game, we're not gonna run all our animations at 60 FPS. So you might have image, because of your image speed, etc., you might be going up like half a frame every step or whatever, right? And so if you got to 5.5, then yes, technically, your image index is going to be greater than image number minus 1. And it's going to check and it's going to consider the animation to have ended. But the animation might not have ended because you're at 5.5. You're not at 6 yet, which is where the animation will actually loop. Okay, so you're not actually there this frame, so it's still not quite right. It's just close enough that a lot of people haven't noticed that this doesn't actually work correctly at all. So do not use this, even though the manual tells you to, okay? It's very, very wrong. What I'm going to use instead is this script called animation end, as I say, courtesy to the GameMaker Discord. I added this at the bottom here just to credit these guys who helped me out with this and showed me this. It's where I do a lot of my research for these tutorials. And a lot of topics, if I don't already know what I'm doing with them and I need to learn stuff, I go and ask these guys. There's loads of really cool guys on this Discord full of really helpful information. Highly recommend them as a place. Yeah, so this script, what it does, you don't even you can pass in arguments, but if you just call animation end, open bracket, close bracket, I'll leave this up a little while. You can pause the video, just copy all this down, maybe even put a paste bin in the description or something like that. If you just call this, then it will tell you, it will return true or false based on whether or not on this exact step the animation is going to loop, okay? Which is very, very useful. It tells you, has the animation just ended? Super, super useful. So with that in mind, with this script being in mind for doing that, of course the other alternative here is you can also just use the animation end event, other animation end, which does the same thing and does work correctly. But in order to do that, we would then have to check our state. So it would be like if animation end and we're in the attack state and it's separated out from our state machine. So I don't like doing that. I've relied on this in the past and even from previous tutorials, but I don't like leaning on the animation end event. So we're not going to use it in this tutorial, okay? So if at the bottom here, I'm going to say if animation underscore end, open bracket, close bracket, okay? We're not going to pass anything else in because we don't need to. Funnily enough, it even has parameters for checking stuff like if you were using your own manual system, you can pass in the rate of frames per step. It's quite fancy, really, but we don't need that. So if animation end, sprite underscore index equals s idle. So that's back to our regular animation, and state equals player state dot free. And that's it, that's the end. That's every bit of code you should need for this. Let's run now, and hopefully I haven't forgot anything, because that would be kind of embarrassing. So let's run this now. We've got a player, we can move around, and I can press the attack button, in my case being Z, and also I believe H. I can run around and press this, and we attack, and it does our attack. It registers the hit, it's finding the hitbox. You see if I stand like Oh, okay, no, our hitbox is really wide. It's kind of hard to show that the hitbox is working. The hitbox is also working on a precise level as well, so you don't even have to use a box in the way I've done it. So let's just quickly take a look here. So I've done it like a box over the sword, because that's like how traditional hitboxes looked. You don't have to do that if we're using precise ones, but you'll find you probably want to anyway. It sounds weird and unintuitive, but there's design reasons. Players kind of expect the players don't expect really precise collision boxes. They can sometimes work in certain situations. I think this would work if you cut it off to be exactly circular with the sprite like that. But for example, in things like the idle sprite and stuff, especially if it's stuff to do with you getting hit and that kind of thing, you find players are often actually kind of thrown by super precise collision boxes. It sounds anti-intuitive, but it is true. But I'll leave that to you. That's your own design decisions to make. So if you want to, you can make these absolutely precise. Thank you very much for watching. In the next part, we're going to be looking at combo chains. So I'm going to make it so we don't have to do this single boring attack every time. We can mix it up with multiples. I hope you'll check that out. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for my patrons for selecting this topic and for supporting what I do. Speaking of my patrons, here they all are now. These are the guys that allow me to do what I do. I couldn't do any of this stuff without them. Thank you ever so much to them. Thank you ever so much in particular, and in no particular order, to Andrew Gilbert, Arthur Kyle Vanderlei, Bowser the Dog, Bertie T, Daka Dondigo, Dan, Eric Matthew Hibbs, James Grumley, Jason McMillan, Jens Kolhammer, Kimo Savalampi, Malcolm, Mark Lintz, Michael Ward, Mike KB, Owen Morgan, Patrick Guffey, Penguin Muffins, Robert Churches, Rovan Darlan, Run, Stephen Hagen, Tobias Scholten, Turtle Time, Zephyr Flame, and Zinan May. Thank you ever so much, and thank you for watching. I'll catch all of you next time.